expertise to our conversation today. Now we move on to our next story. While reacting on the latest attack, Germany has said that Iran's retaliatory strikes on US bases are calibrated and has expressed hope that Tehran and Washington will now enter talks to avoid further conflict. In a post on X, German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul said Iran's strikes were unacceptable and said Germany stands in solidarity with its partners in the Gulf states. The UN chief, in the meanwhile, has condemned the strikes by Iran. Antonio Guterres, spokesperson, has said that the UN chief has urged again for diplomacy to end the conflict between Iran and Israel. The spokesman said that Antonio further reiterates his call on all parties to stop fighting. Now we have guests joining us for this discussion. Karis Ria, she's a producer at Epoch Times and fellow with the Middle East Forum, joining us live from San Francisco. And we have another guest, Hashim Wahdatiyar. He's an international relations analyst, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you both for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World.
Thank you.
Carrie, I would like to ask your take on the Iranian missiles have now attacked and hit US bases in Iraq as well as Qatar. How are these strikes being framed domestically in the US?
Right, well, thank you for having me. I'm actually in DC, not in San Francisco as well.
Oh.
I would say this is largely performative. We know that these strikes were coordinated with the US ahead of time, and that means they were also likely coordinated with Netanyahu and I think even Putin. So I think that this is really just about saving face, as evidenced by the fact there is not a single injury that I have heard of yet, not even a scratch, which largely means that essentially Trump, who had evacuated much of the aircraft and the troops from these bases, knew that this was going to happen. So I think that what we're seeing is that Iran, by and large, has been a paper tiger, unless they have secret bases that we are not aware of, or secret storage depots where they have more ballistic missiles than we are anticipating. Then I think largely that this is going to be the end of any sort of retaliation in terms of what Iran decides to do.
And now, Hashim, I would like to ask you that what should viewers look out for in the next 24 hours to 48 hours, which will determine a trajectory in upcoming maybe few weeks?
Well, thank you. Remember a very important point, and that is that the hostility between Israel and Iran did not start a week or 2 weeks ago. It started decades ago, okay? And also between the US and Iran. I am not optimistic for this ceasefire. Even if this ceasefire takes place within a few hours, it will not last. Okay, because the conflict in the Middle East is much broader and it has so many dimensions, and bringing all these dimensions together and bringing all these protagonists together to solve the problems, the challenges among these specific three countries would take years in order to unravel the issues and also to put a full stop to this conflict for a longer period of time. That's one thing. The other important thing is that for the region, if a few countries in a region are in war, that does not mean that the region is peaceful. Okay? So when there is a conflict between 2 or 3 countries in a specific region, the whole region needs to get in, pursue diplomacy, negotiations in order to stop that limited war. Otherwise, this limited war will expand further. As we saw today, it expanded to Qatar, it expanded to Iraq, and also to other countries if this ceasefire does not stop. The third very important point, and that is only solution is diplomacy. Had we had this negotiation, which took place today, if this had taken place before this war, face-to-face confrontation start, we would be in a very better position. Now, after 12 or 13 or 10 days of the direct confrontation between Israel and Iran, no result other than destructions, damaging, killings, casualties. These are the only results, and neither side was successful. The only successful methodology was diplomacy.
And Carol, what is your take on that? What should our viewers expect from the next 24 hours to 48 hours with this this situation?
I'm not that great I'm not that great when it comes to speculation, but I'm very good at analyzing past events as well as what's happening right now. And if we look at the past, I would say that diplomacy has largely failed between Iran and the peace-loving free world. I mean, diplomacy only works against a rational actor, and Iran is not a rational actor. They have an end game. It is a Shiite supremacist caliphate, not just across the Middle East, but also across the West. And they really know only to do two things, which is lie and cheat. And we saw that with the JCPOA. And so I don't really know how diplomacy could possibly work when you have an actor that will agree on certain conditions, and behind your back, they will just be violating all of the terms and those conditions. So unfortunately, those kinds of stakes are just too high for a country like Israel. Maybe America can extend the diplomatic hand a little more than Israel can, but if Israel gets intelligence that says that Iran has enriched uranium to 60%, which reaches the 90% threshold of weapons-grade material, then I'm sorry, diplomacy is just not something that Israel can afford. This is existential. Iran has been clear about their goal of wiping this cancerous tumor that is Israel, as they say, off of the map. And so, like I said, when the stakes are this high, Israel had to act.
And now, building on that, Hashim, with missiles still flying and attacks reported, can we even call this a ceasefire in effect? Or is this more a pause in escalation?
Well, as I said before, we have to see, because the Iran's foreign minister also said that they do not trust the parties involved in the negotiations. Of course, when parties are there and the negotiations start to conflict, that means that there's no trust and confidence building. But one thing which is very important, we need to have two policies when it comes to Iran. One is the government in Iran, which should be treated differently, and one is the people of Iran's, the 90 million people in Iran, the children's, the women, the elders, okay? We should not penalize the 90 million civilians in Iran for what the government of Iran does, okay? That is one thing. Second thing is, yes, I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C. I have a beautiful life, but that does not mean that when I'm sitting here, we have to try for something like the other governments are doing, and for the other governments we need to penalize the civilians of Iran and also the innocent civilians of Israel. Look at the children there in Israel. Look at the bombs on the hospitals of Israel, and also the sick and the patients on the hospitals who cannot walk, right? So we also need to consider these all aspects. That is why if a diplomacy takes years, is way better than 2 weeks war.
And Karis, I would like to come to you now. How seriously, according to you, does Israel take Trump's statement here? And is there real coordination, or is Tel Aviv moving on its own terms?
I think there's real coordination, but that doesn't mean that Israel has much of a choice, I think, in the matter. I think they largely had to agree to the ceasefire. But look, the ceasefire hasn't started yet, right? I mean, they gave Israel, I think, 6 hours, and I think they gave Iran 12 hours, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not in effect yet. So it's no surprise that we're still seeing missiles falling. But I'd just like to say that in terms of the innocent people suffering, it is only largely the innocent Israelis that are suffering. Yes, there have been 24 people that have been killed, and that is awful, and every life is tragic, and I believe that there has also been some civilian casualties. But the Iranian people are largely behind Israel taking out Iran's nuclear program. I mean, this is why you just see incredible numbers of Iranians dancing on their rooftops, watching Israel bomb military and nuclear assets. They're not bombing civilian assets. They're bombing only assets that have to do with the IRGC or the nuclear program. And this is why you're also seeing, banners hanging off of highways in Tehran that says death to the dictator and death to Khomeini. So I don't think that many people, I don't think that there's many innocent, I don't think that it's 90 million people that are suffering as a result of this war. Israel's calculations have been incredibly precise. I mean, this series of strikes that they pulled off, people are going to be studying this for decades. This is one for the history books. This is the stuff of legends, how incredibly precise they were. We saw them target IRGC members and members of the, Khomeini's advisor, all living in penthouses, by the way. And you just see a little hole through a high-rise building. This is incredible. On the flip side, you have Israelis being terrorized across the country as the Iranian regime is firing indiscriminate missiles. Now, thank God, as I said, they're largely a paper tiger, and so their military capabilities are not very successful, and that's why we've only seen, although each death is a tragedy and each life is precious, we've only seen 24 deaths on the Israeli end, including the hospital that they bombed, which is no doubt a war crime, but Israel had evacuated Soroka Hospital, and that's why there was no casualties from that event.
To our guests, you will stay with us. We have a breaking news. Israeli military has instructed citizens that they are now permitted to leave protected areas, signaling threat from